Hey everyone, today we're going to be working on number 5 monomial and polynomial notes, adding and subtracting polynomials. So when you add and subtract polynomials, variables with the same powers can be added together, well, their coefficients can be added together. So the powers stay the same, but the coefficients can be added together. Coefficients are just the numbers in front of the letters. So variables, so we're just going to write that in here, variables with the same power add your coefficients. Okay, so you're looking for the same letter variable that has the same power, the same little tiny number. So when you have that, your front numbers can be added together, your coefficients can be added together, but then your powers stay the same. So I'm going to keep that on, or add this. Powers stay the same. We don't add those together. Okay, so let's look at this first one. So I'm going to start with my highest power. So when I'm looking, my highest power in all of those would be this x to the squared. Okay, so if I have 2x squared and 4x squared, that's going to give me a 6x squared. Notice that my power stayed the same. My next power going down would be just like an x. So I have, and take the symbol in front. So that's a negative 2x. And I have a positive 2x. So if I have a negative 2 and a positive 2, if you put that in your calculator, negative 2 plus 2, you're going to end up with 0. When we have 0, we're not even going to write that down. So I'm going to leave those blue ones blank. I'm not going to write anything. And then I just have this last piece right here, 5. So it's going to be 6x squared plus 5. Okay, let's look at my next one. Again, we have addition in the middle. So you have your two sets of parentheses and we have addition in the middle. So when we have that addition in the middle, we can just go ahead and add what we have. So I'm going to start with my highest power. So I have 3x squared and a negative 7x squared. So if I have 3x squared plus a negative, so you want to use this plus in the middle. So this right here. So if you're going to do this on your calculator, put your 3 in your calculator plus, and then use that minus 7 as a negative 7. So you're going to put in your calculator 3 plus negative 7, and if you did that, you're going to get a negative 4, and it's still going to be x squared. My next highest power is just going to be my x's, so I have a negative 4x plus 2x. So if I have negative 4 plus 2, that's going to give me a negative 2x. And then I have my constant, or my ones without a letter. I have a positive 8 plus negative 5. So you're just in your calculator, you're going to say 8 plus negative 5, and you're just going to get a positive 3. So plus 3. Okay, let's try number 3. Again, I'm looking in the middle. I have a positive. So I'm going to start with my highest power first. So when I look through all those, I have 3x to the 4th. When I look, there aren't any more 3x to the 4th, so that's just going to stay the same. I'm just going to start with 3x to the 4th. The next power would be to the 3rd, and I have a positive 2x to the 3rd. And that's the only one, so I'm just going to write plus 2x to the 3rd. The next thing I have are my x's. So I have, my x squared. I have a 2x squared right there. That's the only one I have, and it's positive. So I'm going to say plus 7x squared. Then I have my x's. So I have negative 3x and negative 3x. So negative 3 plus a negative 3 is going to give me a negative 6x. So minus 6x. And finally, we have our last two pieces, which is this is a positive 2 and this is a positive 3. Those are going to turn into a positive 5. So I would just put plus 5 on the end there. Okay, let's look at number 4. Again, I'm looking to see what symbol I have in the middle. It's positive, so I know I'm just going to add everything together. I'm going to start with my highest power. My highest power in these is to the 4th power. So I have negative 4 plus negative 3. If I did that in my calculator, negative 4 plus negative 3, I'm going to get a negative 7x to the 4th. My next power would be to the third. So here's to the third power, and it has a positive in front of it. So that is the only to the third power. So I'm just going to add that one because it's positive. I'm going to say plus 3x to the third. My next thing would be an x to the second power. I don't have anything with an x to the second power, so I'm going to go down and I'm just going to find anything with an x. So I have a negative 14x right here. That's the only one. So I'm just going to, because it's a negative, I'm going to use that like a subtraction, negative 14x. And then I'm going to do my constants, or my ones without letters. So I have a positive 14 and a negative 8. If I have a positive 14 and I subtract 8, so 14 plus a negative 8, that's going to give me a positive 6. So I'm just going to put that positive 6 right there. Okay, now we're going to be subtracting polynomials. So there's just kind of one extra step you have to do with subtracting polynomials. The first thing you're going to do is distribute the negative. So I'm going to put that right in here. Distribute the negative to the first set of, or sorry, not the first, the second set of parentheses. Okay. When you distribute that, you're going to change the subtraction symbol in the middle to an addition symbol. And then 3, you're just going to add like you did before. Add like variables. Okay, so let's try this. Okay, so notice on these ones, we have this negative in the middle. So because we have that negative in the middle, we have to distribute that negative to each piece of those. And really what that does is it takes whatever symbol it was in front of that number and it turns it to the opposite. So I'm going to start by just rewriting my first set of parentheses. So my first thing is going to be parenthesis. I have 4g to the third minus 5g. Notice I didn't change any of these. Okay, now that negative in the middle is now going to be a positive, or that subtraction symbol is going to be a positive. Okay, before you had a positive 2g to the third. Well, now it's going to be a negative 2g to the third. Okay, you also had a positive 4g, so now it's going to be a negative 4g. Okay, and now I'm just going to do what I did before. If I have powers that are the same, so I have 4g to the third plus a negative 2g, 4 plus a negative 2 is going to give me a 2g to the third. Now I'm going to add up my g's. I have a negative 5g plus negative 4g. So if you put in your calculator negative 5g plus negative 4g, you're going to get a negative 9g. And then we're done with that one. Okay, so let's try number 6. We're going to do the same thing. The first thing we're going to do is our first set of parentheses, we're just going to rewrite exactly like they are. So I'm going to say 3n squared plus 13n plus 13n to the third plus 5n. Okay, put those in parentheses. This was a negative, so I have to distribute that negative to each piece. So instead of writing negative in the middle, now I'm going to write a positive. I'm going to start my new parentheses. If I just look at that 7n, it was a positive 7n, so now it's going to be a negative 7n. That 4 was a positive 4, so now it's going to be a negative 4n to the third. Okay, and now we're going to combine our like terms. So I'm going to start with my highest power, which is a positive 13n to the third, and I'm going to combine it with my n to the third over here. So I have 13 plus negative 4 Well, 13 plus negative 4 is going to give me 9. So 9, oops, that's not what I wanted. Why is that so tiny? There we go. So I have 9n to the third. Now I'm going to do anything to my second power. So when I'm looking, I have 3n to the second, and I don't have anything else with an n to the second. It's a positive, so I'm going to say plus 3n to the second. And now I want to do just my n's. So when I look at those, I have 5n plus negative 7. If I have 5 plus negative 7, that's going to give me a negative 2n. Okay, let's move on to the back side. Okay, just like before, we're going to take our first set of parentheses and we're just going to write them. We're still working with subtraction. So because of that subtraction, I'm going to distribute, whoops, got a little excited there. Let's try that again. I'm going to distribute that negative to this first piece. I'm going to distribute that negative to this second piece, and I'm going to distribute that negative to that third piece. But first, I'm just going to write my first set of parentheses exactly like they are. So I'm going to start with a 3 minus 6x to the fifth minus 8x to the fourth. That all stays the same. That minus in the middle is now turning to a positive. And now I'm going to start my parentheses of my next set. Okay, it was a negative 6. So now it's going to be a positive 6. Instead of saying plus 6x, we know that if we just write 6x to the fourth, that shows it's positive. When it starts, you don't have to write your positive. If that was a negative, we would have to write that negative in there. But if it's positive, that one just starts with 6x to the fourth, and we just know that's a positive 6. Okay, now I had a negative by that 3x, so now it's going to be a positive, so I'm going to say plus 3x, and I also had a negative in front of that 8, so that's going to turn into a positive, so I'm going to say plus 8x to the fifth. Okay, so when I distribute that negative, remember a negative and negative equals a positive. So a negative in the middle and your negative in front of your 6 made that a positive 6. Your negative or your subtraction in the middle times your negative in front of your 3 made that a positive. And same with your 8. You had 2 negatives, that made that a positive. Now we're just going to combine our like terms. So I have negative 6x to the fifth plus 8x to the fifth. Okay, so negative 6 plus 8, that's going to give me a positive 2x to the fifth. Notice those powers are staying the same. I'm going to look, and my next thing are my fourths to the fourth power. So I have negative 8x to the fourth plus 6x to the fourth. So negative 8 plus 6 is going to give me negative 2x to the fourth. And now I'm going to look for anything with a third. There is nothing with a third power. So then I'm going to look for anything with a second power. There's nothing with a second power. So now I'm just looking for the x. Well, this one is just an x. It's positive. So I'm just going to write plus 3x. And finally, my constant. My constant is anything without a letter. And this 3 does not have a letter. It doesn't have a negative in front of it. So it's just going to be plus 3. Okay, let's try number 8. Okay, again, we're going to keep the first set of parentheses the same. So I'm going to say x to the fourth minus 2 minus 3x to the third. That all stays the same. Before I had this negative, and I'm going to distribute this negative to that negative. I'm going to distribute this negative to this positive, and I'm going to distribute this negative to this negative right there. Okay? So those ones are going to change a little bit. So in the middle, instead of writing negative, now we're going to write plus, use our parenthesis. Because we had those 2 negatives, now it's going to turn into a positive. So this first one, I'm just going to write 5x to the fourth. Okay, now I have a negative in the middle and a positive in front of your 6. So if you have a negative and a positive, remember that the negative stays. So I'm going to keep that a negative, and I'm going to say 6x to the third. And now I have a negative in the middle and a negative by that 8. So a negative and a negative turns into a positive. So this one's going to turn into a positive. And I'm going to have 8x to the fifth. Okay, now I'm just going to combine my powers. Okay, so my highest one is a fifth. I have a positive 8x to the fifth. And there isn't anything to the fifth power, so I'm just going to write 8x to the fifth. Okay, now I want anything to the fourth power. So I have 5x to the fourth, and I have x to the fourth. Remember, if there's nothing in front of that x to the fourth, there's really a 1. So 5 plus 1 is 6, so that's going to give me a 6, positive 6x to the fourth. And I'm looking at anything to the third. I have negative 3x to the third and a negative 6x to the third. So if I have negative 3 plus negative 6, that's going to give me a negative 9x to the third. And then I just need my constant. I don't have a 2. I don't have just an x, but I have this, or sorry, I don't have a squared. I don't have just an x, but I do have this negative 2. So I'm just going to plop that negative 2 on the end. That's our constant. All right, 2 left. Again, just like we did before, our first one stays the same. So I'm going to say 5y squared minus 3y plus 8. Okay, this negative is going to turn into a positive, but we have to distribute it to here and distribute it to here. Okay, so I'm going to put a plus in the middle. That negative now is positive and start my new parentheses. So when I look in front of that 4, it's a positive 4, so I want to do the opposite. So now it's going to be a negative 4y squared. Okay, if I have a negative in the middle and a negative 9, those turn into a positive. A negative and a negative are a positive, so that's going to be a positive 9. Okay, now I'm just going to combine my like terms. So I have 5y squared minus 4y squared. That's going to give me 1y squared, and I could just write 1y squared, or I could write just y squared. I'm just going to write y squared for this one. Okay, then I'm going to look at my y's, and I have a negative 3y. It's the only one, so I have negative 3y. And then I'm going to do my constants. My constants are this positive 8 plus a positive 9. 8 plus 9 are 17. Oh, I realized I just made a mess. I made a mess. I thought I made a mistake, but I did not. So I have a positive 8 and a positive 9. That's going to give me a positive 17. So plus 17. Okay? Okay, last one. We're going to take this first one and we're going to leave it exactly like it is. So I'm going to say negative 8xy plus 3x squared minus 5y. Okay, so those are all staying the same. Because we have this negative in the middle, or subtraction in the middle, we're going to distribute that subtraction to each section in there. So I have to distribute that negative to those 3 pieces. So instead of writing minus in the middle, I'm going to write plus in the middle. And now it was a positive 4, so now it's going to be a negative 4x squared. It was a negative 2, so now it's going to be a positive 2y. And it was a positive 6, so now it's going to be a negative 6xy. Okay, so basically all your symbols are just changing to the opposite. So you don't have to put too much thought into it. If it was positive, it's now negative. If it was negative, it's now positive. Now I'm going to combine my like terms, starting with my highest power. So when I'm looking at my highest power, looking through all of these, my highest power would be to the second. I have a positive 3x squared plus a negative 4x squared. Positive 3 plus negative 4 is going to give me a negative 1x squared. So negative 1x squared. And now I'm going to do just my x's. So do I have any that just have an x? Nope. But I do have some that just have y. So I'm going to combine this negative 5y and this positive 2y. So negative 5 plus 2 is going to give me a negative 3y. And finally, I'm going to do my xy's that are together. This is all one piece. So I'm going to do that xy and this xy. I have negative 8xy plus a negative 6xy. So negative 8 plus a negative 6 is going to give me a negative 14xy. All right, you have everything you need to be working on assignment number 5.